do you want to start with Kennedy and then we can go back to the first
Sure.
one?
Sure.
Yeah. So
Let's do that. Let's go to section 2 and start
yeah.
with blue moons and stuff because, fam, I'm living in Boca Raton. Some people call it the motherland. You know, it's a very high. There's a lot of Jewish people. My school was about 70% Jewish. When I was a freshman, fam, they weren't giving off the Jewish holidays, and nobody was in school. So, but my sophomore year, they started giving off the Jewish holidays in my school. It was kind of funny. But for me, even though and this is something else as well, and I don't want to excuse it, but I have so many friends of mine's father that were mentors of mine that were pro-Zionist, and it's kind of like I don't want to say I came accustomed to it, but I just knew who they were, and I didn't understand their flaw until my friend Howard Wolfman, who's no longer alive, God rest his soul, his rabbi came to the house. He was a poor Jewish kid who lived in the trailer parks out west. And this rabbi told me about how Israel is wrong, you know what I'm saying? And how the oppression of the Palestinians is wrong, that people are equating Zionism with anti-Semitism, and it's wrong. And I think that's what was captured yesterday by Lucy, a.k.a. Blue Moon, Jeremy Lafredo, and I brought some videos to the table, fam. Do you want to speak before we throw some of these up?
Let's just look at the videos.
Jump right into it. All right. Guys, like and share, please. Outside RFK Jr. event, Jewish people protesting the Israeli apartheid. Is there a reason you don't talk to these Jews, but you talk to the reality TV rabbi RFK? That's Lucy from Blue Moon. Take a look at this.
Why are you here at the Robert F. Kennedy event today?
Help the Almighty, we came as a delegation of rabbis basically to voice our support, our sympathy for the Palestinian people, and to try to explain to all the candidates, really, not just to Robert Kennedy, but to everybody, that really equating Judaism and the state of Israel, saying that if you support Israel, you're supporting Judaism and you're not anti-Semitic, is totally not the truth. Zionism and the state of Israel is antithetical to Judaism. It's unacceptable according to Judaism. Judaism is subservience to God, a religion of 3,000 years, while Zionism in the state of Israel is a transformation to nationalism. It's 100-odd years, a movement that's really contradictory to what we're all about. We're not to kill, we're not allowed to steal, we're not allowed to oppress the people. What the state of Israel is doing is unacceptable. It's a crime. It's the whole concept of this state, of the creation of a state on the heads and shoulders of the Palestinians, according to our religion, is unacceptable. And if you will go to the very religious communities, whether it's in Jerusalem or here in New York, right in Williamsburg, across the bridge, you will find that they're anti-state of Israel. They're anti the establishment of the state. We hurt and cry with the Palestinians. Zionism, the state of Israel, exacerbates anti-Semitism. Creates a rift between Jews and Muslims. They're causing the bloodshed of Palestinians and of Jews. Supporting it only helps exacerbate anti-Semitism. Really, it's not a solution. And we plead with these politicians, with Robert Kennedy, with any of the Democrats, Republicans, please respect the voice of the rabbinical authorities, whether here or in Jerusalem, who are the voice of real Judaism, who say this is not us and it's unacceptable. We oppose the state of Israel and all their actions, the crimes, this horrendous crimes that are being done to the Palestinians.
All right, thank you.
Family.
Israel, what it is an occupation. It's an apartheid state. This is why a lot of African leadership, including Nelson Mandela's grandson that I got to interview, is supportive of the Palestinian cause, because they see it as no different than what South Africa had to go through. So, in further, what Judaism is as a religion is diametrically opposed with anything that Israel has been pushing. It's actually what Zionism is fascistic. It's the same form of fascism, elevating a group of people over an entire other group of people. And you can see in this video, this is Jeremy Lafredo's video all of these rabbis, and they say authentic rabbis, support to Israel is not supporting Jews or Judaism, because what Judaism is entirely contradictory to what the idea of Zionism is, and the murder and execution of Palestinians, of people of Arab descent. Because let's not forget, and we're going to hear the comments too from RFK and Shmuley, that this is also, that's what this is about. It's this anti-Muslim thing. In the same way there's radical, jihadist Muslim beliefs, there is also this radical Zionist belief. And I don't go around telling people that they're all, they're all jihadists, but this is what Israel has weaponized to use to attack Palestinians. And whenever somebody says something, it's Hamas is a terrorist group, Hamas is this, Hamas is that. That is, it's just such a huge issue, because it's more than a regional issue. It encompasses so much on the anti-imperialist front, which is why when we go to Nicaragua, when we go to, when you go to Venezuela, when you go to Cuba, you see a lot of Palestinians there. In fact, at the Nicaraguan celebration for 4419, there was a Palestinian representative there, and there was a lot of support for the Palestinian people in Nicaragua.
Fam, what do you say to people in the squad, for instance, like Rashida Tlaib, who is now, going out and saying that, I don't know if the vote was exactly, but it was an anti-Israel vote. Like, it was to say that they were racist or whatnot, but then she'll turn around, oh, we don't support Hamas, though. We don't support Hamas. I mean, I've said this much, and I'm not giving Robert Kennedy for being honest, but I will say this much. I think that the squad and people like Rashida Tlaib are kind of phony their stance when it comes to Israel. They're really not anti-Israel.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They're hypocrites. Yeah, and we've rightfully criticized them. In fact, later on in the show, I'll show you how we've criticized the squad early on Israel as well.
Fam, another first for us without getting the credit. Who cares? As long as it gets out into the universe. Fam, what do you say to people that if you do go and you diss the state of Israel right from the jump, you have no chance in any campaign whatsoever, that they'll crush you?
I think that's exactly why you have no chance in any campaign, because you literally keep doing the same thing. People think that they can only run as a Democrat if they succumb to Israel, if they give their endorsement to X thing, and that's the only way they can win. You're not changing anything. You're literally doing the same thing and expecting different results. And I think if you're still trying to run as a Democrat, you don't understand crap. And further, I mean, the reason you don't get anything is because we don't have fair elections. So you could say whatever you want. You could be the best candidate in the world. But if you're not attacking the election system that we don't have in a fair and democratic way, like we boast about all over the world, then you're just really cosplaying. And again, every 4 years, everybody comes out of their shell and says, okay, let's go play pretend and pretend to vote and that our vote counts and all of this crap. And it happens, which is why I just don't get it. I don't get why it took just one guy to say the right things again. And then people forget everything that they know, that we don't have fair elections, that you shouldn't be running and empowering the Democratic Party. And they're doing this all over again. It doesn't matter. In the next few years, there'll be another issue some guy is good at, and he's going to run too, as if to be the savior. It's just not going to fix anything, because you're still doing the same process. You're empowering the same system that created the problems you are now facing. So I just don't fucking get it. I'm sorry.
I would have a lot more respect for everybody running, if they were going to run, but at least call out the system for what it is, the election system for what it is, and then fight it in every single step of the way. But that's not what's happening. Even Donald Trump in his campaign now, they're even starting to look like they're going to start encouraging mail-in ballots more. Like, well, if the Democrats are going to do this, we're going to beat them out on game. So what movement did you really have for election integrity when at the end of the day you're going to bend the knee and go along and just say, I'm going to cheat better than the other team? It's terrible. What do we have next up here, Cheese Slice?
Right. So again, this is basically what we said. It's not just one issue. It encompasses many issues. And I already said that. And Jeremy Lafredo also interviewed the anti-Zionist rabbis, if we want to take a look as well.
Yeah, let's take a look at this one.
It seemed like the media accused this politician of being anti-Semitic, and now he's trying to prove that he's not anti-Semitic by saying how great Israel is. Does that surprise you?
It doesn't surprise me because, like I said, this is the general perception that's given very successfully done by the Zionists as a ploy to gaining support and to stifle any opposition to the state of Israel is by equating and convoluting and the two concepts of Judaism and Zionism, even though it's really both contradictory, and it's just so blatantly wrong. Judaism is to serve God, to be peaceful, to be loving, to do kindness. Zionism is a truly selfish political movement of occupying another people. So wrong, so vicious, so anti what Judaism is all about. And it's totally humiliating to us as practicing Jews to see and hear what is being done in our name.
Supporting Israel is not support for Jews. Supporting Israel is not support for Jews.
AIPAC, for instance, and the other Zionist organizations makes it a point of attempting to have every single faction in the United States or around the world, any political group, whether it's Democrats or Republicans or independents, it really doesn't matter. They want to actually equate and convolute the issue of Judaism and the Jewish people and the state of Israel, and try to create the mirage, a concept that if you're opposing the state of Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And in truth, Israel and Zionism, then what they're doing is the greatest exacerbator of anti-Semitism around the world.
Right, because when people begin to apply this Zionist ideology to all Jewish people, that's where this hatred comes from as well. So it's actually a double-edged sword by design, because there are fascist elements to Zionism, and we've had this conversation before with Vanessa Beeley, and there are plenty of others who have been talking about those ties between Zionism and Nazism. Fascism. Yeah. It's one and the same, and these are not the same people that are representative of the Jewish heritage, and I do think that's the trope that's been used. So
yeah, they've also, they control a lot of the media as well. You know what I'm saying? The state of Israel control a lot of our policy. He did mention AIPAC there. And, this is some work that the Last American Vagabond did, is just exposing how almost every single piece of our policy in the United States has the fingerprints of the Zionists on it. And that is something very, very scary when you pull the curtains open and you see what's going on behind that whole situation. This is more of a nationalistic thing. This isn't a religious thing. It has these forms of fascism, and it has these forms of nationalism. It's a geopolitical pull. It's the state of Israel. It's not about Judaism. So that's something that people have to realize. What's the next picture we have here? RFK Jr. seems to have unknowingly done what every single U.S. administration has failed to do: acknowledge the fact that Israel does have nuclear weapon. Israel is not going to use those nuclear weapons unless they're attacked, and we know that. You think this was a Freudian slip? What do you think this is, like, just him?
No, I think he's genuine. I'm sick of the arguments that he's he's trying to do this for a strategy. No, this is his beliefs. If you look at his past beliefs and his family, this is what he genuinely believes. And I don't think, it makes it any worse or not. This is what he believes. Yeah, we can hear what he said.
Volume.
And that we know that Israel's use of a nuclear weapon is not going to happen unless it's attacked. And that we know that Israel's
It was
used.
hard to hear him, but that's exactly what he said. He's
Yeah,
not going to use, Israel's not going to use it unless they're forced to or whatever, provoked, which is false because Israel has used these weapons, continues to bomb Syria every other day, and of course Palestine unprovoked. So, and Iran is also in the picture. When we talk about nuclear weapons, why is it that Israel is allowed to have them and Iran must never ever be allowed? So again, it's this double standard when it comes to Israel, the same double standard that applies to the United States and NATO when it comes to nuclear weapons. You know, Russia and China, they should never, but the United States and NATO, sure, nobody says a word about that. So to me, Israel is just an extension of U.S. hegemony.
Let's get on to Rabbi Shmuley and hear what he has to say, fam.
Well, he was quoting RFK here, and he was happy that RFK said this, because RFK said if a Palestinian wants to criticize his government, he better do it in Israel. So let's hear what he said.
Which is pretty much a smack in the face. It's pretty fucking disgusting if you ask me. As if the Palestinians weren't there and this is not an apartheid regime and occupied territory. And that's exactly what this is. And it's just licking the you-know-what of the Israeli lobbyists.
So there's a video underneath it that is much the longer stance. So let's go ahead and play that.
Case for Israel. Israel, as you know,
volume please.
Only place in the Mideast where there's freedom of expression for all citizens. 1.9 million Palestinians in Israel, and they vote. Palestinians serve in the legislature. They serve in the courts. They serve, I believe there's 3 Palestinians on the 12-person Supreme Court. There's no place in the Mideast where there is a Jew on any court or any legislature. Maybe in Morocco, there may be some public officials who are Jewish, but nowhere in the Mideast. It's the only place where women have rights. As you know, this week, people in Iran are being jailed. Women are being jailed for wearing habibs, or not wearing habibs. It's the only place where gays have rights. There was 2 weeks ago a gay pride parade in Israel with 150,000 people in both Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. At the same time, the government of Iran is hanging gays from cherry pickers and castrating them. And that is true throughout the Mideast. It's the only place where there's freedom of religion, where you are free to practice any religion that you want in Israel. It's the only place where you can have freedom of expression. A Palestinian who wants to criticize his government had better do it in Israel. It's the only place where he can do it. If he does that in the West Bank, he will be tortured and killed and arrested, or in Gaza.
Okay, I don't even know where to start with that, but I'll start with Palestinians should go to Israel to criticize their government. Palestinians can't go to Israel because they live in an open-air prison, and they are literally being genocided by Israel. They're not allowed to go anywhere, even if they have conditions that require help. So that's why that doesn't happen. Palestine barely has a government left because they're being killed and they live in apartheid. So it's ridiculous to make Israel this democracy, because I'm also pointing out these very things that a lot of his supporters apparently are against. The propaganda of the LGBTQ. I'm not, saying I'm against people who have a different sexual preference, but I am against the propaganda and the way it's being pushed in terms of trying to weaponize it politically for a specific narrative. And a lot of RFK supporters are ignoring his stance on that as well, and how he's elevating the fact that there are rainbow flags at Israel and that there's all of this propaganda, that Israel is following along with the WEF, a lot of things they love to talk about as well, with this sort of, new order that is against a multilateral order, that is the kind of order that wants to subjugate all people. And when he's talking about democracy, he's talking about it in those terms. He also, and this is another reason why it's bigger than Palestine, goes on the whole Iran is undemocratic and they're awful to women. When I've interviewed several people who have been to Iran and live in Iran and who say there are more educated women in universities in Iran than there are in other parts of the world, and it's the hijab, and it wasn't even the hijab that was being outlawed. It was it wasn't like the whole garment. It was just they were saying it was just like a scarf basically. And the people of Iran are facing sanctions, are facing this vilification by the West, and the fact that he's elevating these like sort of color revolutionist NATO propaganda that we've seen about Iran in the last couple years, where they tried to use the death of that young woman and say that she was killed by police when it ended up she actually died of a heart issue. He's using those same propaganda issues. So to me, that's a bigger issue than Israel Palestine. That's like now, oh, you're really following this NATO propaganda when it comes to West Asia or the Middle East. So
can I say something about that too, right while we're talking about that, because I think that is one of the bigger mess ups, fam, right there. It is a really when you're sitting there and you're doing this at the behest of supporting the state of Israel, you're now going against everything you say. How can you sit there and say, oh, these other countries are unstable, these theocrats, they're over the top, and they don't allow women to exist, and they brutalize gay people, when you know for a fact, and if you want to talk about Iran, that was the first CIA regime change right over there. We've butted in our business to all these countries, and we've put forth some of the most radicals of radicals, and he understands that, from the Mujahideen to the Contras in Nicaragua. So who are we to say anything about these countries when we've removed people like Mossadegh and these secular leaders and stuff like that, democratically elected, to push the most vile extremist people that we could push? And it's still going on in Syria to this day. And by the way, exciting news with the Russians in Syria, and hopefully that stuff comes through, and the Americans, because, Donald Trump, who we're going to show right now, who is also taking money from Adelson Jesuits, or I don't want to say Jesuits, Adelsonites, you know what I'm saying? Like Rabbi Shmuley, and now RFK is doing the same thing. So I thought that was that comment right there, when he starts talking about that and trying to make Israel look like a beacon of light, was probably one of the most disingenuous things he could say, because he does know better, and he's contradicting himself there.
And Max Blumenthal said tonight Robert Kennedy Jr. is on stage defending apartheid with Shmuley Boteach, a fanatically anti-Palestinian grifter, and Adelson-funded fraud dogged by financial misconduct charges. Shmuley's credentials as a rabbi have been challenged by his own teacher. And if you click on the Gray Zone link, I just want to point out a couple of things there. Let me see if I can actually click on it, because I can't see it.
Don't you love just saying the name, though? Shmuley.
No, but okay, so I wanted to point out what he said. He said, as a rabbi, I am particularly grateful to the Adelsons, and he has inserted himself as political liaison to far-right pro-Israel casino mogul Sheldon Adelson. He's a close confidant of Senator Ted Cruz, spiritual guide to Michael Jackson, pal of Oprah Winfrey, soulmate of Eli Wiesel, and buddy of Senator Cory Booker, star of his own reality show and best-selling self-help author of Kosher Sex. So he's an interesting one. He's well-tied and has all of these, connections. And the article goes on to talk a lot more about his connections, and his connections, of course, to Adelson and to a lot of the more right wing areas of the United States. Just signifies to me that Kennedy praising him is really another Democrat. And this is precisely why you won't see genuine people running under the two-party system, because they have to, they think they have to. And, at some point, because of what it is now, that's all that's there. They have to really succumb to whatever, whether it's AIPAC, whether it's, the military industrial complex in one way or another. And I think the military industrial complex has been sort of divided in terms of which areas, each party really is at, in terms of, for example, the Republicans have this anti-China boner, while the Democrats have this anti-Russia boner. At the end of the day, a war with either of those countries would signal a nuclear catastrophe. So don't let, the moment trick you into thinking, oh, well, if we get a Republican in or somebody closer to the Republicans, things will be fine, because it's always been about China, especially now more than ever, with China's influence growing, with BRICS, with the economy shifting towards the East. I think that's definitely on the agenda. So this is precisely why I can't swallow somebody like Kennedy.
And, I'm not making an excuse here. I'm just pointing out another reason. I talk about, me really appreciating Kennedy talking about the whole COVID-19 situation. That doesn't mean I 100% trust him. Yes, I'm happy to have the conversations and the things he's talked about. But, Mr. Kennedy had a Christmas party at his house, and he's married to Cheryl Hines, who, was in Curb Your Enthusiasm, Hollywood actress. And, you had to be vaccinated to go to that party. It said it on the invitation. So he has bowed down to his wife's wishes. And that's what I think a lot of this whole Shmuley and Israeli connection is to as well, as you saw the Shmuley has these connections straight to Hollywood. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's something that's in the background that we have to look at and say, okay, that's not to excuse it, but that's just to point it out that that could be another reason why he feels so strongly about putting his you-know-what up the tuchus of the Israeli state.
Yeah, I mean, I still think this is his belief and his family's belief, but I mean, his allegiance to his wife doesn't really help his situation either way. And the last thing I wanted to show is this tweet from Sam Husseini, because this is exactly what I believe is what RFK is being weaponized for. And I'm glad I'm not the only one that thinks this. RFK is splintering the anti-establishment and effectively doing the establishment's work at this point. Incalculable damage. Right, because you see people are fighting online, right? The RFK supporters versus the Cornell supporters versus the we don't vote supporters. Because it's just, because I feel personally, he's making Zionism absolutely acceptable to a sector of the anti-establishment that was questioning COVID, that really is their issue. And COVID largely, and I'm not saying this to discount it as important, but COVID largely affected people in the Western world, especially in the United States, in the way that it's being presented here. This is why other countries in Latin America and in Africa don't really have the same point of view, in China as well, because there was a different way of dealing with it. There's a different sort of concept in China. It's a completely different type of collectivist society. And so the way we in the United States were affected by COVID and the lies around it, and you could even say certain parts of Europe as well, in Australia, but really that's it. Like everywhere else, even in Russia, people dealt with it in a different way. Russia was never as adamant with lockdowns as the United States was. So COVID was a very unique experience, unfortunately, for the people of the United States. And so that is, it's, to me, is why it's so centric to a lot of people in the United States, and why a candidate like Kennedy is really making a lot of waves when it comes to that issue.
Yeah, I think also the censorship issue helps his cause, and it gets his support there too as well. But I just want to point out too, while we're showing Sam Husseini's tweet up there, that he got to retweet your stuff, and I think that he's growing frustrated too as well, because there's a shit line when it's only so much you can take. But me and Sam Husseini did discuss when he came on the show one day how we can turn this thing for our benefit. Instead of allowing these politicians to use our movement to uplift their candidacy, we need to use their candidacy to uplift our movements. And we do that by cornering them, asking them hard questions, not letting them off the hook. You know what I'm saying? That's how we can use the candidacies of the RFKs, of the Cornel West, to help our movements and bring light on our movements. You know what I'm saying? Because it's really hard. It's one thing to hide and not say anything. That's what the establishment does. But when you're pressed for certain issues and certain things, you have to speak it. You're going to either get exposed or you're going to help uplift it. So I think that's what we also need to keep in mind we have to do. That's what I intend to do with RFK. I'm going to use him and put the spotlight on there to make sure we talk about elections, to make sure we talk about these other issues, to make sure we talk about foreign policy. So, I mean, as these things are happening, as these events are happening, I'm compiling more questions to corner him on. You know what I'm saying? And then there's areas where I know he's going to do well with. So that's what we need to do. And that's what Sam Husseini's interview did for me. Sam's like, cut through the bullshit. Let's use these candidates to uplift our movement. That's what we have to do. We have to flip the script for a change.
Yeah. I mean, if that's what people are going to do.
It's possible to be done. It's tough, but it's possible. Yeah.
It seems like most people are wanting to be cheerleaders rather than actual challengers. That's in general. That's what it seems like.
Well,
to me.
I haven't gotten my interview yet, fam. Okay? And it's because I'm probably in the doghouse for what I did. But you know what I'm saying? It's not going to change me. So it's not like, these guys, everybody's like, oh, Pasta's got his nose up RFK's ass. And that's what it seems like sometimes. And I've said a million of times, I'm not supporting him. I'm not even voting for him. Right? I am there I like his candidacy because we talk about certain things I think will be swept under the rug, but I'm going to use his candidacy to uplift our movements. And I haven't got my interview yet, guys. You know what I'm saying? He's avoiding common sense based foreign policy, anti-imperialist leftist. I think in my mind, he hasn't gone on with Max. He hasn't gone over here. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, have we seen Cornel West go on Jimmy? No. You know what I'm saying? So, they're going to try to hide at every single step of the way. It's up to us journalists who can get in front of them with a camera and hold them accountable. I know you hate that, but I can't think of anything else to say.
If they're accountable to you, but they're not. So, anyway.
Well, either way, then they expose their asses. We expose their asses then. You know what I'm saying? Either way.
Yeah.
I can't get close to Biden. I can't get close to, Trump. Trump is one of those guys every once in a while you might get a chance because he'll just see something and he'll go walk over and start talking. But, there's Vivek Ramaswamy, who's got some great points, to him too as well. But he's also an anti-China hawk. And I'm going to ask him a lot of questions if I see him. You know what I'm saying?
I've not seen him make hardly any great points. That guy's like a lunatic to me, like a neocon.
He's anti-China as can be. So, you know what I'm saying? He does talk, highly about censorship, and I appreciate his points on that. So,